Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this month's client-centric topic for LinkedIn Live with Premier Talent Partners. I am Natalie, our VP of Business Development, and we are here again to unpack another amazing topic from our HR in a Box resource guide. We're going to be talking about the Employee Development Employee Experience Toolkit, and this month, I have invited our very own Miss Brenda.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining. A little context on Brenda, and as I thought about who I wanted to invite on this month's toolkit for employee development, I was like, oh yeah, Brenda, she'll be great at that. But then as I was reflecting on Brenda and her time at Premier and her journey at Premier, I was like, oh my gosh, her story is like the perfect example of this toolkit. So Miss Brenda, she is currently one of our recruiting directors, and she originally started at Premier many, many years ago as a temp receptionist in our San Francisco office. And then when I decided to help open our first East Bay office, Brenda joined me over there, and she grew with the company into recruiting coordination, recruiting, business development, client management, leadership. Now she's like the boss of so many people upon the talent team. And so she is the perfect example of why it's important to really have an employee development experience and journey, and to be able to set expectations with your people on what their potential could be. So Brenda, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself? Any other fun facts that I may have missed?
Yeah, no, you pretty much covered a lot of it. I've been at Premier for 7 years. I've held many positions. I've had a team leadership role, then moved into a manager role, and I've managed many of our talent team throughout my time here. And I was a brand new manager. I've never managed anyone before. So I think the tools that Premier gave me just helped me grow and learn what it is to be a manager and what it's like to connect with people and to set expectations with your direct reports, and just everything that I know now, I've learned along the way at Premier, and a lot of it has been from managers that I've had, like Natalie. So I've collected a lot of different things from my toolkit over the years that has helped me grow and help others grow that I've worked with as well. It's been fun.
Exactly. And you've really honed your craft. You've helped contribute to our internal employee development. So I'm hoping that maybe you'll have some kind of internal personal experiences that you can share. But for starters, I'm going to go ahead and screen share here. And so we should all be looking at part 4, Employee Development Toolkit. For starters, Brenda, why do you feel it's important and vital to an organization to create structure around employee development and having that structure for them?
Definitely. I think from my experience, employees, whether you are more entry level right out of college or you've been in the workforce, people thrive in an environment where they understand, okay, this is how I can succeed. This is what's expected of me. This is what the company or organization I'm working for, this is what they view as success. I also think that equity is important too. So if you have a streamlined employee development program, that you're giving the same opportunity for success for everyone within your organization and everyone in your company. I think this toolkit kind of outlines every possible scenario and touches on every point in the life cycle of being an employee.
Yes, I love that piece about equity and making it fair and inclusive, because then everybody knows like what's the benchmark and what are the milestones, and everybody has a full equal opportunity to be able to go through that journey, and they can choose how much or how little they want to participate, and or how important or non-important that is for them. So great point on that. First, we're going to start by unpacking the 90-day introductory period. We have created a policy template, so to speak. So again, this is one of those examples that You can take what's relevant for you, put it into your own HR policies manual, employee handbook, so to speak, and basically outline what a 90-day introductory period is, what's the purpose, and then what is your internal policy. But for starters, Brenda, what do you feel is the most important takeaway of this section?
I think a key component of this 90-day intro period, which is not uncommon, a lot of companies do have a 90-day introductory period, but this is important, I think, to outline it in your employee handbook, because that's the first thing that your employee is going to see documentation on. And it's helping to set really clear expectations early on in the process. So I think another important part of the 90-day intro period is setting expectations. It's really, really important. We've talked about it. We'll talk about it in many parts of this part of the toolkit, but nobody wants to be surprised that they're not hitting the mark. So setting that expectation really early on is really key and really critical. And that first 90 days is really the time to do that.
The prime time, yes. And one of the ways that we do that here at Premier, and also not uncommon in larger organizations, is by helping those employees set SMART, achievable goals. So we've built in a template here that you can download and you can literally just reproduce yourself. Can you give us some examples with your direct reports, Brenda, how you use or how you go through the SMART goal process with them, or anything as it relates to SMART goals with your team?
Yeah, and this is something that is huge at Premier. We're all about goals. We're all about simplifying. We have 5 here, but you could do 2. You could have 3. And every quarter, I'll work with my direct reports and, okay, what do you want to achieve next quarter? And they'll just spit out a few things that they want. Then we break down each goal and we make sure that it is SMART. Is it measurable? Is there a number attached to it? When do you want to complete this by? Is it by the end of the next quarter, or it could be within the next week? So this is an exercise that we actually do every single quarter, whether you're a new employee or you've been with a company for many, many years. And what's also nice is that maybe each month we'll check in on these goals. Okay, what's progress towards these? And you can always adjust it too. So you might keep the goal the same, but maybe you're extending out the timeline, or you've hit the goal halfway through the quarter, so you want to up it a little bit more. But it's definitely important because it helps with, again, setting that expectation, and then also self-accountability. So now your employee knows, okay, this is my goal, this is what I want to achieve, and they can help and keep track of their goals themselves, which I think empowers them to succeed on their own. Absolutely.
And to your point, I think that's really where the measurable piece comes in, right? Like you're measuring it, you're measuring the attainability and achievability of the goal as you go. And if you're measuring that you're above performance or you're behind performance, then you work towards that or with that. And I don't know about you, Brenda, but for so long, I didn't even know what SMART meant.
Yeah.
And so I realized right now, I was like, oh, actually, we should probably back up and explain. What does SMART mean? SMART is literally this section I'm highlighting here. It's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, right? Someone could have a lofty goal, but is it relevant to their work or to what we do as an organization? And then it has a time-bound commitment to it, right? A deadline, a by when date. So for those of you that's probably like I was at one point in time, what is SMART, right? I don't want it to just be SMART because I think it's smart. These things actually mean something. So,
and the relevant piece I think is really important because it ties it back to the overarching company goal. Because you can have a goal as an individual, but is that supporting our larger company goal or a larger team goal? We want to make sure that everyone is aligned, and making sure that it's relevant ensures that there's alignment between the individual employees and the company as a whole.
Exactly. That's great. And that was a good segue to the next section, which is weekly team meeting agenda guide. There is so much about employee development at the individual employee level, at the one-on-one with their manager, but then we also want to make sure that the employee feels engaged and developed as it relates to the overall team. So also not uncommon in organizations is to have weekly team meetings. And so what does that mean? How do you set it up for success? How do you make it where it's not just everybody's looking at each other or just sharing, stories from the weekend, but how do you set up a weekly team meeting agenda that is productive, right? So I'd love to hear from you how you maybe set up a weekly team agenda that's relevant to your talent team members.
Yeah, I'll say that my favorite part of development, I love one-on-ones and I love setting expectations, but I love team meetings. They're my favorite because it just allows everyone to hear from each other and to collaborate and to celebrate wins and opportunities. And we're just talking about goals. It's also a good opportunity to share amongst the team, like what am I working on? What are my goals and my achievement towards those goals? So in the past, I'm a talker, but I love to also empower my team to lead team meetings as well. So we've rotated who's the leader, who's going to add topics. And I like that it's structured so everyone knows what to expect. They have the agenda and they can just plug in the different topics that maybe they want to talk about in that particular week. So I think it's just a great time to collaborate as a team, which I really appreciate, and a lot of the team members appreciate.
Yes, absolutely. And specific to recruiting, right? If anybody's watching that is managing a recruiting team in particular, this is always great. Like Brenda has daily actual impact meetings where they go through, what are the open recs? What is the status update on those? What are some wins? Did we have any placement? Where are some challenge areas and opportunities? How do we prioritize or reprioritize day over day? And like, who can jump in for some extra help? And so it's literally keeping everybody accountable every day, but everyone also gets an opportunity to hear like, oh my gosh, Joe had a placement and Kristen, really nailed that profile for that sourcing activity. But then at the end of all of those daily or weekly events, Premier personally has built it into our culture where we really want to also walk away with something personal, some sort of personal connection. And so we have, like trivia questions that we ask, or we do talk about updates from the weekend. So try to find the balance that is appropriate for your company and for your team. And it doesn't always have to be so regimented and structured to just business, but you can find a way to build some fun and culture into it as well.
Absolutely. Especially in the remote world.
Yes.
Working remotely, it's important to have that connection time. And we did make a choice to, instead of weekly, we change it to daily because we want to have that touch point with our team, keeps ourselves accountable, but also connecting with your teammates every day. It's been nice.
Exactly. And Brenda's team is super fun and I get invited to come and I love every moment of it. All right. Lastly here is the one-on-ones. And that's really where you are spending time individually with your direct report and talking through things that are specific to that person, to their role, to their SMART goals, etc. We went ahead and created what we call a questions bank. So if you're struggling with, okay, well, how do I set an agenda for these one-on-ones, or what do we talk about, or what's relevant? We've posed some questions here that could be helpful. But something I also know that Brenda does really well is she empowers and actually encourages her direct reports to you set the agenda. You come with what you need to talk about, right? It doesn't always have to be the leader that is structuring that. So Brenda, do you want to give us a little bit of insight on that experience with your people?
Yes, I love my one-on-ones. The one-on-one time, it's so important. And I personally, I don't use the one-on-one questions every single one-on-one, but it is a great guide for me to help have a really balanced one-on-one. Some of my direct reports, it can be very business focused and talking about each job and the struggles that you're having and progress. And we forget to talk about, well, what do you need? What training do you need? Or, what ideas do you have to build more culture in our team? It's easy to maybe not touch on those topics if you don't have a prompt or a question to ask. So I really rely on this when, hey, we've been talking about business and projects for the last 3 months. Let's throw in a question so we can talk more about you and your development and what you need from me, or what I can provide you. I think it helps just have a really balanced conversation, and touches on topics that you might not normally touch on in a normal one-on-one.
And I'm not sure if the audience can see, it might be a little small here, but the questions, there's a lot of different categories, right? Sometimes the one-on-one might be very business focused, like catch me up to speed on your desk or the projects you're working on. Sometimes it might be more of a difficult conversation of lack of performance. And that's really where you need to come in with more of those coaching questions, and how do we get them to see and understand their gaps and opportunities and set goals to meet better performance. So sometimes the questions are a little bit more challenging and difficult. So be sure to check out the different categories of questions, because one-on-ones over the life cycle of the employee will change and they'll ebb and flow. So that is our employee development toolkit. Thank you, Brenda, for all of your insight and stories. I know your team absolutely loves and adores you and admires you as a leader. And so with that, Premier takes a lot of pride in building out our leadership development programs and also making sure that our individual contributors really have the right development they need. So I will round out this topic by saying employee development doesn't have to just be thought about and or created after you've hired a bunch of people. It's absolutely okay. And it might be helpful to start thinking about it and crafting it in advance of any scaling or rapid hiring pushes, so that you are set up for success immediately after you onboard these people and their continued development can keep going. And so they don't feel any of those lulls or lack of development opportunities. So thank you again, Brenda. We really appreciate your time, and make sure to tune in next month for my next segment, which is going to be the culture toolkit. We'll be talking about some fun culture pieces, how to think about culture, how to assess your culture, and we'll have some cool little takeaways there, and then another guest speaker. So we will see you next month. Thank you again, Brenda. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.